Settling back into a comfortable posture. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. And if you're sitting upright, just trying to find a balance and stability so that you can come into stillness. You can also lie down if that's more helpful. One of the advantages of being on Zoom is we don't all have to be sitting in sort of official meditation postures. Don't suit everyone necessarily. Just working with whatever is most useful for you. And having a sense of the body softening. Releasing the shoulders, relaxing the jaw and the muscles in the face. Softening the belly so the breath can move deeply into the body. And feeling the body moving with the breath. And noticing whatever other sensations take your attention as you settle. And it's nice to just take a sort of general overview of the body as you begin to meditate. Kind of feeling what's up, what is prominent in your sensations. Sometimes can be surprising, discovering that there are parts of the body that you're feeling that you didn't sort of realize were just activated in that way. Checking into the more emotional level or mood level. What are you feeling in that arena, if anything? It's actually a question to ask is there always a mood present? And then starting to focus more specifically on the sensations of breath. You can feel the breath at the nostrils or the belly. If you can rest the attention in a specific spot or small area of the body where you feel the breath. As the body relaxes, the breath also tends to soften. As the breath softens, the body calms. And there's this relationship between body and breath. One teacher calls the breath the body conditioner. And I think we know how that works, how we can use the breath intentionally to calm the body. And as the body calms, so too does the mind tend to settle. When the mind is disturbed, the body tends to be restless or anxious, agitated. But we can work with this relationship between breath, body, mind to start to settle and gain clarity in the mind. It's natural for thoughts to arise, for the attention to drift away from the breath, from the body. So when we notice that we're caught up in thinking, we don't have to add in some judgment or frustration. Simply acknowledge that natural process, and then gently come back, connect again with the breath, with the present moment. If there's a particular persistent thought, it can be useful to look at that, or question what's behind that, and also to see how it stirs up the feelings. So we start to see again relationship, the connection between thoughts and feelings. And sometimes it's easier to find some calm by just opening to and feeling the feelings, just allowing them in, letting those nonverbal experiences dominate the mind rather than the verbal or image aspect of thought. Sometimes it's actually the thoughts that are triggering the feelings, or sometimes the other way, feelings, some sort of underlying feeling just stirs up thoughts, makes the mind agitated and trying to solve the feeling. And this usually just turns into a proliferation of thoughts. Better again to simply be with the felt experience and be with the breath. All right. So that felt relaxing to me. Um, that term I used, the body conditioner, the breath as what conditions the body, comes from Buddhadasa Bhikkhu, the Thai forest monk, and it's an interesting way of thinking about the breath. And we know that this is true to an extent, that when we breathe fully and deeply, that there's a calming that comes. And we know, like in different systems, yoga and qigong and others, the breath is used in this way, in a very intentional way. Typically in mindfulness or Buddhist meditation, we're not talking about using the breath for a purpose other than as something to pay attention to, as a concentration object. But I'm seeing that there are, as I'm kind of doing a lot of work with the mindfulness of breathing sutta, seeing that a lot of the, particularly the Asian teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, also talk about the breath in this way and sort of using it more intentionally. And it's something I've been kind of playing with just in my daily life, as well as in my meditation practice. Then Buddhadasa then goes on, because in the sutta, the Anapanasati Sutta, which is the mindfulness of breathing sutta, it's one of the fundamental key suttas in the Theravadan Buddhist tradition. It starts with breath and body, and then it goes, there's 4 sections: breath and body, one section, and then second section is about the feeling, or the feeling tone, and then the third is mind, and then the fourth one is like the insights, or mostly about impermanence. But the second one, the feeling tone, in that, Buddhadasa says that the feeling tone conditions the mind, so that which again makes sense, and something we all sort of experience and sort of know, at least intuitively or subconsciously, that like the kind of raw experience of feeling a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling, however you define that, then our thoughts kind of follow from that. And I was kind of referring to that during the meditation. And so the suggestion, actually, at least one way then of working is, rather than like, oh, I've got to like deal with these thoughts, is to deal with the feelings and try to let the feelings be less agitated. And so I kind of like breathing into what you're feeling, which a lot of times means really being very open to what you're feeling, as opposed to a typical, like, either pushing away feeling, or in the sort of psychological thing of trying to solve feelings or understand them, where to ask where they came from, and those type of things. But rather just, can I just be with this feeling? And what happens if I just allow it to be here? And obviously I'm kind of talking more about feelings that we don't want to have, and that we can, so then it's like kind of a third conditioning here, because we have like breath conditioning body and feelings conditioning mind, but breath can also condition feelings, and I dare say feelings condition breath, that, it's not unusual that if you realize you're kind of like upset, you notice, oh, my breath is getting shallow or rough, and so kind of trying to bring more regular attention into breath, and this whole like interplay can really allow for more equanimity generally in our lives, where we're not sort of getting stirred up as much, and that we're applying right effort, not grasping after feelings and not grasping after conditioning breath or conditioning feelings, but trying to sort of harmonize with them and allow, but kind of in this inclining way, kind of inclining towards the calming aspects. I just, it's kind of mindfulness 101, but I'm just finding myself very interested in the very, particular aspects of this. Not just sort of generally saying, oh, you should be aware of your breath, but really starting to be more attentive to the subtle movements. So that was just about the meditation. Coming to the book, A Burning Desire, which is my second book, and is really all about reconciling the idea of God with a Buddhist meditation practice. So reconciling the 12-step God, or the role of God in the 12 steps, with some kind of Buddhist view. And the section I'm on, which is on page 26, is the last part of the piece called Higher Power of Karma. So much of the book, about half the book, is kind of selecting key elements of Buddhist teachings and looking at how they operate as powers in our lives. And so the first one is the power of karma, which is the power really about cause and effect. I usually try to clarify the definition of karma, because in our culture, it's sort of got imported into America in the 60s, and to suggest some kind of fate, something inevitable. But the true meaning of karma, and the law of karma, is that actions have results. And so that everything that happens in your life has some cause behind it. Now, that doesn't mean that you are the cause of everything that happens in your life, because there are a lot of causes going on in the world, which is why we can't really sort out every aspect of karma, but we can kind of address the things that we can be responsible for, and that's the best we can do. And in Buddhist terms, that means, first of all, following precepts of non-harming. Of course, in recovery terms, not using intoxicants, and again, not harming. We don't lie, cheat, and steal. So those basic elements, not so basic, because they're like pretty important. But then there's kind of the karma of our thoughts, and the karma of our feelings that we have to become attuned to, and start to see how our thoughts create our actions, and then our actions unfold with results that then become our life. And so really embracing this is, first of all, really taking responsibility for our own lives, which doesn't mean that we are in control, because if we were in control, then karma wouldn't be more powerful than us. And so we would just do whatever we wanted to do. So there always has to be this respect for, and attempt to harmonize with the law of karma. Like, what is the most skillful thing to do in this moment? In my daily practice, one of my rituals for quite some time has been to recite the 5 daily recollections. That are, the first 4 are really about impermanence, the nature to age, to sicken, to die, and to be separated from everyone and everything that I hold dear. But the 5th one is about karma, and it's broken up into several things. But the final line is, whatever karma or whatever actions I do, whether skillful or unskillful, that I will inherit, And so it's just reminding myself that, like, I need to make good decisions, take wise actions to the best of my ability. So that's a general lead up. And so this last section is sort of an odd little piece that's talking kind of about bringing in nirvana and the idea. So I'll just read this one. No, as I said, page 26, if you happen to be reading along. One vital point about karma. In the Buddhist teachings, it is said that the enlightened being no longer creates karma. This means that enlightenment stands outside the law of karma. Nirvana is not conditioned by anything, although its realization is a result of karmic actions. I don't know how this works or exactly what it means, but if I'm going to be accurate in talking about how karma affects us all, that it is everywhere and knows everything, it's important to note this exception. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to define a nirvana. In Pali, the word is nibbana. There's no R's in Pali, it seems, at least very few. In any case, as I say here, nirvana is not conditioned, and that's really what kind of the distinctive quality, if we can say that separates it from everything else. And everything else is conditioned, is made up of different elements, like our bodies or our house or our minds. There's multiple parts to each one, but nirvana is kind of is something that's not created by things coming together. There's not much more I can say about it, but it is interesting. I guess I will say a little bit more about it because I've been thinking about it, and on my last retreat, I kind of got into sort of asking this question a little bit, of sort of having some kind of an understanding. And so the one way to kind of start on this for me is to look at how everything else is conditioned, kind of just look at conditioning, look at and as well the flow of life, because impermanence is also related to conditioning, because everything is constantly in flow. So everything is constantly conditioning and reconditioning and changing form and changing shape. And so there's this whole process of unfolding that's constantly happening to body, mind. Every aspect of reality is in constant flux, except for nirvana. So it seemed to me that if I can look really, really closely at impermanence, and this is, one of the classic sort of meditation practices, perhaps there's a way in which you can kind of penetrate through to the other side of that, if that makes any sense. Kind of like, okay, everything's moving, but somewhere, there's somewhere there it's not moving, the nirvana, right? And it's like, if my mind can get still enough, maybe it can sort of arrive at that stillness. If I can stop making things with my mind, if I can stop conditioning and acting out of conditioning and cease that process for a moment, then perhaps that's something about what happens in that touching nirvana. Because it's, of my understanding from, the teachings and teachers, these stages of enlightenment, of experiencing nirvana, are just momentary. It's not that you enter into nirvana and now you spend your rest of your life in this unconditioned state. It's rather that there's a moment in which you see through it, and that moment is transformative. And, I always come back to recovery, right? The moment of clarity, that moment when you see like, oh, I'm an addict, or, you see it's almost like a break in reality, because you've been living in this one view of reality that I'm okay, or this is what it, this is who I am. And this kind of moment of clarity, oh, no. And like, for me, that just flipped. I mean, it happened one day, I don't know when it happened, because it was like I had my last drink, I went to bed, the next morning it was over. And somewhere in between there, it was like, oh, I mean, obviously I'd been building up to it, but the transformation that just went like, I'm done. I don't remember that moment. I just remember everything leading up to it, and I remember immediately after it. So I don't know if that's really parallels experiencing nirvana, but not quite. But we call it a spiritual awakening. So it's a a reasonable analogy, I think. So, but I immediately in the book here address what I think is a significant issue that can come up in this idea that, oh, I don't create karma anymore because I'm enlightened. The problem with this idea is that some have used it to excuse actions that harm others. So-called enlightened teachers have claimed that their actions were above the law of karma, so that when they appeared to be harming, committing adultery, abusing substances, exploiting people, and accumulating wealth, none of it was really destructive. I don't know if there's any of this is familiar to you, but if you've been around the spiritual world for a couple of decades, you've run into it. This same idea can be heard from those who claim to be born again, that they are somehow saved and nothing they can do will reverse that. Perhaps, but we need to be very careful before making such claims or accepting the claims of others. After all, if you are enlightened, why are you going around doing these things in the first place? And one of the claims of such deluded teachers is, oh, I'm trying to break people's idea of, break their attachment to an idea of an enlightened being. I'm going to be like crazy wisdom. Yeah. It's quite apparent that while the Buddha may have transcended karma, he continued to be impeccable in his behavior, in fact, devoting his whole life to passing on the wisdom, peace, and joy that he himself had attained. Having solved his own problem, he had turned his attention to helping others to the same experience of transcendence. But, and I just happened to be reading an article that's part of the mindfulness teacher training for this month by David Loy, who's a very interesting Buddhist teacher from Colorado, and he's done a lot of work around climate change. And it's an article from Tricycle magazine from the summer of 2019 called "In the Shadows of Transference," and it's about the students having transference with their Dharma teachers and sort of assuming that they are like special and magical, and so anything they do is okay. And this is, as I say, like a really, really dangerous idea. The idea that you can become enlightened and transcend karma, and that you can't actually. It may look like you're harming people, but you're not really. There's no karma attached to that. I remember talking to Ajahn Amaro about this, and particularly about one famous Tibetan teacher who was an alcoholic and also known for exploiting and abusing women in his sangha, and that his followers kept saying, even after he died of cirrhosis of the liver, that he was enlightened. And Ajahn Amaro just was like, you can't do that if you're enlightened, because one of the things, I mean, of course, this is all like, belief systems, but one of the beliefs in the Theravadan tradition is that once you actually attain whatever stage of enlightenment, you can't break the precepts. Well, this is why the Mahayana and the Theravada have been duking it out for 2,000 years, typical, um, religious debate, how many angels there are on the head of a pin. But for me, I'm just not interested in teachers who don't follow the precepts. I just, you can make all the arguments you want, but I don't believe you. That's it. That's bottom line, and I have some good friends who are followers of that particular guru, and I love them, but I think it's kind of delusion. I got kicked out of their Dharma center in Colorado for telling the truth. So, I might have to buy Twitter so I can, really tell the truth from now on. All right, sorry, that was really a lame illusion. So there are a couple. I did a couple of funny little things in this book. One of which is made prayers. So it was like, okay, if I'm going to replace God, then I have to have new prayers. So at the end of this section, basically the end of this chapter. This is my prayer to the law of karma. I turn my will and my life over to the higher power of karma. I vow to live in harmony with the moral laws of the universe and use the power of karma to support my spiritual and worldly growth. Too bad I didn't say anything about other people in there. It'd be nice if I was concerned about someone other than myself. But, and then there are a couple of little exercises, which I'm not really into them. I just, I put them in books because I'm supposed to, but or I don't know, people expect it, but I don't like exercises in books. So that's the end of the chapter on karma. Although, it winds up, sort of being a partner to all the other higher powers. Next thing is the higher power of mindfulness. So obviously it's like the actions we take, that is the karma we take, that we take mindfully, will have beneficial karmic consequences, outcomes. The actions we take that are done not mindfully will not have the same beneficial results. So we see that that's why I made karma be the first higher power in this book, because it's one that really activates all the others. Without that, the others wouldn't really be powers. And it goes back to one of the things the Buddha said, which is if this path didn't work, if it weren't possible to change and to grow and to have this experience of enlightenment, I wouldn't teach it. So it really is about something happening. And I say that because that sort of sounds like, okay, what does that mean? That I say that because at the time of the Buddha, and indeed today, but particularly we see the Buddha sometimes debating, but mostly kind of disparaging people who believe that there is no karma. People come to him because there was there was these beliefs, certain beliefs that people fell into about cosmology or how things work. And one of them was, nothing you can do can change the outcomes. Everything is fated, or else anything you do just has no effect. So very, kind of nihilistic ideas, and the Buddha completely rejected those. Um, so it is a really important thing to understand, because people still today believe that, oh, everything is already, written down, and we're just playing something out. And then there are others who think, oh, it's just a chaotic universe. There's just random, and there's no connection between things. And so those belief systems still exist. Obviously, humans um, are drawn to these different sort of ways of thinking about reality. But that's I think the Buddhist approach makes the most sense, and indeed, I think probably most people believe in some way or other in karma. Uh, you know, um, maybe not quite to the degree that a Buddhist would. Um, so that's plenty from me, um, and so we still have some time left. If anybody wants to chime in.
Hi, Kevin. I'll say something.
Oh, goody.
Yeah, briefly, just that something you said earlier. I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but I just heard it. Yeah, I heard something in a new way, I guess, just related to karma and being in the present moment. Like it requires being in the present moment. And
Yes.
yeah, which is just interesting, especially when like I'm trying to be in the present moment, right? Like, and like related to the meditation, even what you're talking about with feelings and triggering thoughts, and like trying to get myself to the present so that I don't say something harmful or like do something harmful toward, that's toward myself or others, like in relationship or
Yeah.
but yeah, it really requires being, fully in the present moment. And that just yeah, I just heard that tonight differently. So I just wanted to.
Yeah. Thank you, Angelique, because it does give a lot more significance to the present moment. Like, it's like, the idea like, oh, you should be mindful, you should be present. It sounds nice. It's like, great. Yeah. And I guess I'd be happier or whatever. But indeed, the only way you can change anything, the only time you can make any karma is in the present moment. Right? I mean, it's sort of obvious, but we don't always think about it, because so often we are either thinking about the past and how we got here, or we're imagining some future that we would like it to be, or that we're afraid it's going to be. And when we're in either of those places, we're missing the moment that actually could make it be better, that could make it change. I mean, it's a classic addict and alcoholic thing. It's like sitting on the bar stool and talking about what you're going to do with your life and the thing you're going to start tomorrow, Um, but yeah, so yeah, the only time we can change anything is in the present moment. And as you're implying, more importantly, that creates much more responsibility, that you have to be much more responsible about being in the present moment, because whether you know it or not, you're creating some kind of karma in this moment, right? Showing up here creates some karma, you know, it whatever it might be, but we could say generally positive. You're here with a good intention. You're here presumably to, learn something, or to get relaxed, or connect. And but even as you're sitting here, you're thinking, very likely. And so that means that just having your body here isn't enough, right? Your mind also needs to be here for you to get the most benefit from them. I mean, who hasn't like spaced out when listening to a Dharma talk, right? And not really heard it, you know? And so it's like, well, I showed up. I mean, it's like going to a meeting. How many meetings have I gone to where I didn't hear half the people because I was just sitting there? Well, I showed up. I didn't drink. Good. I mean, that's like number one, you know, you showed up. But then it's like I got to bring my mind a little bit. This is the challenge, right? How do I stay present and keep, you know, inclining the mind towards skillful states? And I don't want to make it sound like, oh, if your mind wanders, you really messed up, you know, because all of our minds wander most of the time, you know, and so that's just normal. But it is, you know, yeah, this is what it's all about, right? Is being present. It's not just like a nice idea or it's like spiritual or something. It's really about, and it's not just about being present for your life, but about being present in a way that keeps your life uh, moving in a positive direction. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else have a thought? Go ahead, Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia. I I this is just what I needed to hear. I just celebrated 2 years of sobriety and
All right. Yay. Congratulations.
woo, I've just mainly been doing Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
Like,
How else? Right.
and I've been having some growing pains, would call them. I tend to go through these phases where I react to like what I think is an injustice in life. And I feel like I have to act on it and say something. And instead of just feeling uncomfortable for a while and showing some restraint. And I definitely am an addict. Like I can drink a lot of coffee. I used to, in my 20s, I smoked cigarettes and then, alcohol. And it's just, I should just stick a pacifier in my mouth and now it's food and so
Yeah.
anyways, the breathing, the breath, and I've been reading so much about that, and that helped me through the pandemic, whether it was Buddhism or the goofy Wim Hof. He's not really goofy, he's into the breath work.
Who is that? Who is that?
His name is Wim Hof. They call him he's the Iceman or whatever. He's on YouTube, but he's the breathing to
Cool.
and it's just all about the breath for me. And that's what relaxes me and calms me down. And it's almost kind of a spiritual thing for me. And that's why I'm attracted to Buddhism. But yeah, my ex-husband came by and he was talking to my son, and I don't like the way he talks to them, but they're older and they take care of themselves. And that's my perception, right? And it isn't a positive interaction, but I was reacting to it on the inside. And sometimes I would react on the outside. And I've kind of trying to shift that and let it go, because it's kind of like I keep the fire going.
Yeah.
So that's the nice thing about being sober, is just looking at my own behaviors and my own reactions and my own feelings and how I can really enjoy life more. Instead of going to my grave being this martyr or this victim or whatever, or life's unfair, I can go, in a different way as far as enjoying life and experiencing it and walking through the growing pains or whatever they're called. So I really look forward to coming to this meeting every Friday, because it's just, this is a tough week. My son is home. He has a court hearing on Monday, and I think it's going to be to his benefit, but it's hard for me to watch him go through his growing pains and his addiction. after, being in a car accident in January,
Ooh,
going through treatment. It kind of is like reliving my own addictions in a different way. So I'm just trying to be a good Al-Anon mom and also take care of my own recovery.
yeah,
So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kevin.
yeah. Thanks. Well, I wish you and your son well with that. I think, the thing you kind of started with, the talking about like kind of being reactive to unfair, what you perceive as unfair situations. That, yeah, I think, again, this is a place where being mindful so that you can really, as they say, choose your battles. Is this something that's going to be worth engaging in? Because sometimes, for sure, you want to engage when you see something, whether it's personal or not personal, that's not fair. And yet then there are things with like, oh, where is this going to lead, or
Mhm.
what am I going to get out of this, and those, that way in which we can sort of like want to jump in and not seeing that really what the end result is going to just be suffering. It's not going to really get solved, and the other person's not going to change, or whatever the situation is, that it's really just us, complaining, and so it's that choice. Am I being passive, or am I letting go? And sort of like looking at each situation with that idea, and seeing kind of the cost benefit, like what, and so that if you're present for your feelings, that really helps you is a great guide in these things. Like, oh, I'm just getting stirred up, like, and then projecting like, okay, where does this go if I get engaged? And maybe there is some productive outcome, but if you don't really see that on the horizon, you just kind of go, if I let this go right now, then it's over. It's not like creating some other conflict that then gets dragged out, and that I'm carrying around. So yeah, it's a really important part of recovery, because nothing like a good you know uh, judgment, and you know anger and fight to trigger a relapse. It's just very easy to fall into that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks, Julia.
thanks.
Mike, hello. We'll go on for one more question or
Hey Kevin,
comment.
hey everybody, Yeah, so we're kind of back to the Buddha Dasi thing where we beseech the law of karma through
Right.
our actions and not through our words, right? So
Yeah.
this to me is kind of where we hit it's kind of what works for me. It's almost like a little bit it's a little bit heretical to like God-based AA, right? Instead
Right.
of turning it over to God, we're saying, through our actions,
Yeah.
we're really kind of able to, the human mind to help heal itself, or, to heal our own conditions instead of turning it over to God. And I guess for me, because I'm agnostic, that's kind of what fit for me with Buddhism.
Yeah. I mean, it's not quite self-will, because I think self-will implies greed, hatred, and delusion. so so this aligning with the power of karma means that we're not acting, thinking, or speaking out of craving or aversion or delusion or ignorance. We're acting with clarity. And that's the critical piece, right? I mean, which is what we've been talking about in terms of being present. So it's not I think self-will run riot is talking about craving. Like, I want this, whatever it is, whether it's, a thing or an experience or a person or recognition or whatever that, the ego wants. It's a craving. And when we're working in harmony with the law of karma, it's not driven by that. It's driven by a wish, by the right intention, the intention to live skillfully and non-harming, and in all those positive ways of right intention. So it is it's different from this self-will, I think, which is an important thing, because I think that's the sort of big argument about why you need to turn your will and your life over to the care of God, is that if you're running on self-will, that you're going to be, going in the wrong direction, you're going to relapse or whatever. But that's how I see this, as something that's actually letting go of self in a certain way. Even though it's still, as you say, like we are taking the actions, we're working with our own minds. That's just reality anyway. Any other version of it seems to me to be magical thinking. But bless everyone for all their beliefs. May they all be happy and free from suffering, even if they are deluded. All right, you guys. So yeah, it'll be a while till I see people. I think I'll be leading the class on a week from this Tuesday, when I'll still be on the East Coast, but that'll be like a early afternoon. So I think I'll be there. But this Tuesday, Anne, you're doing this Tuesday?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, great.
Yay.
And then
Hi,
Friday,
everybody.
Debbie is going to do Friday. And so there you go. Thank you, everybody. Be well. Don't drink or use no matter what. Keep breathing. Meditate. Be kind. And all the other good stuff.